Retirement versus financial planning, understanding the key distinctions. A legal disclaimer we put at the beginning of all of our presentations. This information is for general and educational use only. Content is not intended to substitute for professional, legal, or clinical advice. We try to keep our information as accurate and timely as possible, but make no promises and guarantees it works for your local unique situation. So let's get to the basics. What is the definition of retirement planning? Retirement planning is a type of financial plan focused on preparing for life after you're done working, ensuring you have enough money, savings, resources to live comfortably without relying on employment income or other people like your kids and the system, like government, Social Security. And then financial planning is the actual bigger picture. It's personal, it's business, it's retirement planning is a piece of your financial plan. So the financial plan is the big aspect of your day-to-day, how you're going to make an emergency account, how you're going to save in the different buckets for buying a house and paying things off faster. And they tie into your retirement account, but your retirement account is a narrow piece of your financial plan. So there's key goals when it comes to a retirement plan. You want to build retirement funds in buckets. There's some that are taxed now, some that are taxed later. So Roth accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, there's real estate, there's businesses, there's stocks, bonds, mutual funds, there's CDs, there's commodities, there's collectibles. There's 1,000 ways for you to save for retirement, and each one has its pros and cons. Some are more longer term and some are shorter term. Some have more risk to them. Some are quote unquote safer. I always hate when they say this is a safe asset, because there's nothing safe. A house can burn down, a flood can happen. People talk about, a CD and a savings account and a bank is so safe because of FDIC. And if you actually dig into it, they only have like less than 1% of the money. So if a lot of banks go down, you're not going to see your money. Like there's this illusion of safe that we teach ourselves if you just look at it on face value. So I always stress to people, just thoroughly understand your risk and benefits and think outside of the box of traditional retirement funding options. Because what worked in the 1970s doesn't work anymore, and then the plan you make now may have to be evolved based on regulations, based on what changes with the economy. So that's why you want a financial planner, and you want someone that thinks outside the box like you do as a midwife, as a birth worker. You don't want a traditional financial planner, and you don't want a financial planner that just automates things and doesn't individualize it for you, doesn't keep up with trends and regulations. You want to meet with them regularly. You want to make sure you need to pivot, you need to readjust, you're getting some extra money, funds are tight because of some unexpected cost. This isn't a lifelong relationship with someone to do your financial and your retirement planning. The goal is to have income security, and that may be at age 60, 70, 30, 40. Everybody's goals for retirement are different based on their needs and their lifestyle and their goals with retirement. Some people will have a job and they'll have a pension that's part of their retirement bucket. They'll have Social Security, they'll have rental income, they'll have multiple different ways that funds are coming in, and some are inflation hedges. Some you pay the taxes now and you don't have to pay it later, like a Roth account. Some you put it in the buckets before taxes, like a 401k and a 403b, but then you have to pay taxes later, so then you have to be strategic. So just like in your business, the same with personal life. The more you can diversify income coming in and the more you can diversify ways that money comes out, you have choices. It's not just picking one bucket and I'll put a bunch of money in it and I have a number that I'm gonna, because you don't know what taxes are gonna be like in the future. So I always stress to people, Roth accounts are really important. You know what you're paying in taxes now, but you don't know in the future what it's gonna be. So having these different buckets to pull from when regulations change and taxes change and the economy changes is really helpful. Retirement setting goals. Everybody is different. Like that's why it's an individualized plan. One size does not fit all. And what each person can put away and when they're starting, when you start at 18 versus 28 versus 38, 48, 58, your time component side changes. How aggressively you want to retire, what kind of income, job, business you've created, the cash flow, the means Like, I don't even talk to people about retirement planning if they don't even have an emergency account and they're living paycheck to paycheck. Like, you have to start getting financially sound in your personal life before you can. It doesn't make any sense to try to put money away when now you're going into more debt and threatening bankruptcy because you're trying to save for retirement. So we have certain levels of Maslow hierarchy of need in midwifery and in finances that we have to meet before retirement planning can even occur. But there's a lot of really cool stuff out there with tax efficiencies, and I want you to work smarter, not harder. And so there's a lot of buckets out there you can use and different ways to pull from it, short-term, long-term. And so that's why a financial planner on your team is so important with financial and retirement planning. So there's key components of retirement planning. Some people have a W-2 job and they work for somebody else, and so they would have an account to pull from and put into called a 401k, a 403b, depending on if it's a nonprofit, a healthcare, or a traditional private sector. And then if you're W-2, you're a 1099, you have SEPs, which is a self-directed, you have independent IRAs. There's different buckets you can utilize when you're a business owner that actually lets you leverage things a lot better than someone that's employed. And then there's personal retirement accounts. We've already talked about the independent retirement accounts. The investment strategies, the traditional one that financial planners are used to is stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And I personally am not a fan of them because as time went on, and I've learned a lot with history, what you could do in the 70s, people would just save in a savings account and get 14, 15, 16% interest, and they would live off the interest. It was so much simpler in the 70s. And in the 80s, in the 90s, the stock market started getting really manipulated. It used to be the stock market was based on the value and the stability of that company. Now there's a third of the stock market is zombie companies. There's a lot of pump and dump companies that come out in a revolving door, and the government manipulates the stock market. They put in a lot of money and buy things to prop it up for political reasons and for psychological reasons. So I always get really hesitant because there's only so much that can be manipulated before the economy just crashes and can't do it. Like, people that were in 2008 to 12 lost so much money in the stock market and took a really long time to just break even and get back to that point. I can tell you the story of my parents. Like, they lost half of their retirement funds from 2008 to 2012. And when my dad finally in 2016-17 got back to the break-even point of the half the money he lost, he was like, I need something different. I'm getting close to retirement. I don't feel safe my money being in an unstable market when I want to retire and I can't make up for it anymore. So I had done 2 years of real estate investing courses. I had found an amazing real estate investment portfolio. We bought them 70 rental properties. We did a lot of creative acquisitions. He put in $900,000 and we borrowed from his family members and the person that was selling the deal. It was $1.7 million. So literally we joke, he's like the slumlord of this small little town, but it's in his retirement, so he can't actually be the property manager. He just oversees what they're doing and goes and checks on his properties once a year and is making 15-20% on his money. And now this, especially because he bought it in 2016 and with all the inflation and the markets back up, these houses that were $17,000 a piece are now worth $80,000 to $100,000. So his portfolio that he originally put in $900,000 is worth $4 to $6 million, and he gets a consistent cash flow off of it of $30,000 to $50,000. Like, my parents are not big frugal people. Like, my dad my mom stayed home our entire lives, and we lived off of $60,000 to $80,000 a year. My dad saved up tons. He worked for the same company forever, and so it was really hard to save up that money he put into it. You will never find in the stock market where in 10 years from 2016 to 9, you can go from $900,000 to $6 million and still have a cash flow off of the assets. So this is the example I want to give you. This is a true story. It's totally legit. I know my parents are going to be able to live big and dream great, and I'm going to have a nice inheritance when they decide to pass. I can get them the best of the best healthcare and services that they need in retirement. The level of peace of mind, this knowledge and this resources has given me and given my family that I want other people to have. So I stress to you, there's many ways to invest. The average income, middle class, lower class they work all the time and they put in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. Like when I went through my burnout and I went through my really hard times in 2015, 16, 17, I started Google searching, how do the rich do it? They are doing well. They're living a good life. I love my parents, but the way they're teaching me to do this game is really, really hard, and I'm losing it. I'm working harder and harder for less amount of money. I don't like it. I started Google searching, how do the rich do it? I started learning about business, income streams, inflation hedges, playing the game that has been created with the rules and regulations. And so it's just thinking differently, and it's teaching ourselves and doing it in baby steps and having the right people on our team, but it's completely possible for you. Sorry, I went on a little tangent, but it was really important. So withdrawal strategies, it's not just thinking about where you're putting the money now, but when you need it later. Like some you can take out right away. Some you have to wait 5 years before penalties. Some you can only do at 59 and a half. Some can only be used for medical expenses. Some can only be the plan 529s can only be for school approved institutions. So you have to know not just the bucket you're putting into, the rules and the criteria, the contributions, the regs with it, what's the risk and benefits of how it's going to grow and what you can do with it, but you also have to understand how you can pull out of those buckets when you want to, and what penalties and what strategies to optimize it. Healthcare planning, I mean, our most expensive thing to pay for our entire lives, our medical bills, and especially in retirement. This can crumble a retirement plan because of one broken hip and because of healthcare coverage, because you think you're going to have it with Social Security and the government and Medicare, and it pays for crap, and now your retirement buckets that you want to live off of eat up your medical expenses and are gone very quickly. So this is what is financial planning. As I had talked about, it's a higher level concept. Retirement planning is a piece of financial planning. There's short-term, there's long-term goals. The financial planning can have to do, one section of it is your retirement, but it's also your personal budgets now, your finances, your debt reduction, your savings accounts, your business planning, your assets you want to purchase. You want to save for your kids, you want to buy a house, you want to buy a car, you want to go on this vacation. Financial planning is a very general term of short-term and long-term goals you have in all aspects of your money planning. Retirement planning is just one piece of that bucket. So the goals of financial planning are looking at every aspect of your goals, your personality, your risk, your knowledge, your strengths. Like as midwives, I stress we need to have more midwives that are business owners versus financial plan self-employed, because you are your greatest asset. You can create amazing systems and dreams and improve outcomes in your community, but also can create, I want to see legacy birth centers. I want to see legacy home birth practices. We struggle and we crumble when one midwife retires and nobody can purchase and nobody sees any financial value in her business and she closes shop, and then a new midwife has to start all over again. Like we're hurting ourselves with midwifery legacy and with community opportunities to expand access to better birth outcomes by this lack of financial planning and business education that most birth workers have. And so this is why I'm deeply passionate about business and finances, because it's not just about your own personal dreams and wishes. Like we want better birth outcomes on a larger scale, and until more midwives understand business and finances and can have a strength to scale up their services, it's very challenging. Independence, achieving financial security, peace of mind, there's so many links with health and wealth of outcomes and stress and anxiety and heart attacks and dying early because of financial stress. Opportunities, you can eat better, you can make better choices with getting something evaluated and seen. Like I can tell you, I have a high deductible plan and I avoid going to the hospital at all costs and getting stuff checked out and evaluated, because you get them to do one little biopsy and it costs you $2,000, and I'm like, oh, that was fine, that was awesome. And so it is like when you are in a financial situation where you're pressured to push off being proactive and it's more reactive. Now I pay for something because I have no choice, versus I have these dreams. I want to eat healthier. I want a life coach. I want to do some gym and some exercise. I don't want to work 60, 70 hours all the time to pay the bills. I want to work 20, 30 hours because now I can have more time for me and my kids and my health and promotion of yourself. It makes huge difference. Debt management. Some people have no debt. which is super rare nowadays. Typically people have a house, student loans, business, credit cards, the list goes on and on. And so we have to get to the lower rung with financial planning to get debt management in place, because I don't want you putting into other buckets of retirement when you're paying a ton on a credit card. It just doesn't make sense. So we're going to do goal setting. We would do step by step. I can help you with this with consulting. We have phenomenal financial planners that we connect people with, and they each have access to different products and tools and expertise. So like I tell the people, you want a team of accountants, a team of lawyers, a team of financial planners, a team of business consultants that have different areas of expertise that are on your team. You want to do estate and legacy planning, like especially as you get older. Probate court is a nightmare for your kids. And if we can get you a revocable living trust, we can get your assets outside of your name. We can make a smooth transition for your family and legacy. And like I talk a lot about kids and paying kids with your business and whole life insurance, because there's so many cool ways to cause less stress for our families and our loved ones when we're not here anymore. Now we can do. It's not just planning for you and what you want to do when you retire and what age. Like if I'm not here anymore, what legacy do I want to create for midwifery? What resources? What do I want to create for my family, my kids, the next generation, so that they have an easier time than I did? So key components of a financial plan, there's going to be budgets, there's going to be emergency accounts, there's going to be there's two philosophies with financial planning. I call it the Tony Robbins and the Dave Ramsey approach. So Dave Ramsey, God bless him, he works for certain people, but it's more of a scarcity mindset. It's like shrinking, living frugally, like you have X amount of money every month, and we're going to cut things out. We're going to cut things out. You can't go out for coffee anymore. You can't go on vacation. You can't do this. You can't do that, so that you can pay off your debt. And so it creates this scarcity mindset, because even when the debt's paid off, you're afraid to use everything. You're afraid and afraid and afraid. My mindset is more like Tony Robbins, where it's abundance, it's opportunities. It's like, okay, I have X amount of bills and I want to get to this place. How do I increase my income streams? How do I add more value to society? I'm not thinking, how do I get another job? Because you're going to run out of time and then you're sacrificing other things for it. I teach people how to create income streams, how to create systems, how to use their knowledge and skills to leverage it to the masses, where you're getting paid on value. You're not getting paid on time anymore. And then your income streams can be potentially unlimited, and then you're not living, and then it'll continue to grow and it'll continue to expand, and you've created assets that you can pass on, you can sell, you can continue to have income streams from, versus if you are only employed and working for somebody else, as soon as you stop working, whether you want to or you're forced to, your income streams stop. And that is a really, really hard way to live. And so we're going to talk about like different ways to invest, thinking outside the box, different savings accounts, different budgets. But a financial plan is a big, comprehensive approach of where are you today, where do you want to be, and how do we get you there? We talk about different insurances. There's dozens and dozens of insurances out there. And so we do a risk-benefit analysis, informed consent of what each one is like, what are the pros and cons based on you own your house free and clear, but you don't have the money sitting around to just replace that if it burns down, versus like your car. Okay, how much does a car cost? I'll take that risk. I'll have the bare minimum that the state requires for coverage. And I will have a bucket that's set aside that if all of a sudden I get in a car accident, I will replace that car. I have options. I have cushions. Like we talk about disability insurance. I am not a big fan of short-term disability. That's a good bucket for your emergency account, but definitely long-term disability, because if all of a sudden, as midwives especially, our bodies don't work, that's our income stream. If we can't bend over, we get in a car accident, we're not at a point yet where we can live off other income streams. We need a long-term disability to cover that risk of us and the potential of not being able to work long-term. There's different tax strategies. There's different credits out there. There's business write-offs. There's ways to be smart. I always tell people, quit tipping the government, because we just don't know. If you don't know how to play the games, You pay for things after taxed dollars versus I want you to maximize the business. This is why a lot of people buy real estate and business ownership. There's so many deductions with real estate. Farming and real estate have the highest deductions, and they've been around for a very, very long time because the government wants people to get into those. So the more deductions there are, they're encourage businesses and industries to get. They want the private sector to do housing. They want private sector to make food for the population. So buying farmland, farmers have a lot of write-offs. Having a business, having a birth center you own versus you're renting, those people have night and day difference of their retirement opportunities and the asset they've built up versus they've rented for 30 years and they could have bought that building 5 times over and they gave all their landlord the write-offs. So then they're paying top dollar for their taxes. Plus they have no asset they're growing. So I always talk like it doesn't matter if you are a home birth practice, a community center, a women's health clinic. I want you to have in your strategy for your business that you buy the real estate, you buy a building versus renting as soon as you can because there's so many benefits to it. Tax is a huge one. So definitely debt management. We talk a lot about short-term, long-term. What do you want to buy? Where are your interest rates on things? What are the payments every month? We kind of make a strategy of like, okay, let's pay off this first. It's the highest interest rate by more than double everything else. So let's do the bare minimum on this. And instead of, we're going to slowly put into your savings account, but we're going to be very aggressive on this credit card or this high interest business loan that's a variable interest rates. Variable interest rates make me really, really nervous versus fixed because it changes all the time. And people got burned a couple years ago when the typical interest rate was historic lows, 0, 1, 2%, and now it's 5, 6, 7%. So if you had a variable interest rate on your house versus fixed, your house payment doubled in a year and a half. Most people can't handle that. So I always talk, short-term variable interest rates are okay, but long-term, I really encourage people to be in fixed because you can control that. You can't predict the future. And then there's key differences between thinking about retirement, thinking about financial planning, and they correlate together. So I'm just going to go high level so you understand. The purpose of a retirement plan is to prepare for how you want to live after you're done working. A financial plan is focusing on all aspects, your personal, your business, short-term, long-term, your kids, the legacy. Like retirement planning is a piece of financial planning. Time horizons. Everybody is different. You may want to retire in 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Financial planning covers short-term goals. It could be a goal in 3 months, 6 months you want to accomplish. It includes retirement planning. You can have long-term goals. It's an ever-evolving plan. Retirement is ever-evolving, but usually you're like, okay, 65. You don't all of a sudden go from 65 to 35. But financial planning, you're like, okay, I've rented, and now I want to buy a house. Like you're going to pivot. You're going to shift things because opportunities came up. And so it's just a little bit, a financial plan is more day-to-day, keeping a close eye on it versus retirement planning. It's more of like yearly and biannually keeping an eye on. Key components of the differences. There's different buckets you can utilize for retirement planning. They have different strategies to them and health care considerations, long-term care insurance, and financial planning includes that, but it also has a lot more. It's your personal budgets now. It's your savings account, your emergency account. What do you want to save for? What do you want to have? Do you want to have a house? Do you want to own this? Do you want to be debt free? How risky are you? Like, do you pay a high amount of taxes? Let's talk about buying you some real estate so that you can lower your taxes. Let's get you into estate planning. Let's talk about revocable living trusts. So a financial plan has a lot more pieces to it versus retirement is very focused on the long term. After you're done working, how are we going to save? And then the scope, it's more narrow. We've already talked about that. It's a nest egg. And then financial planning is broad. The instruments are different with retirement planning. There's the 401k, the IRAs, the pensions, the annuities, the Social Security. And then the financial planning is a wide range of collectibles, commodities, insurance policies, investments, savings accounts, emergency, budgets. Like it's just a lot more things to talk about. The risk management, some people are high risk, some people are low risk, inflation hedging things, medical expenses. There's a lot to think about with retirement. And then financial planning is an overall bigger picture of you today and in the future and your family and your kids and where you're at with things. So they overlap greatly. I just have to stress to people that financial planning supports your retirement goals. Retirement goals are a piece of your financial plan. So you want a really, really strong financial plan that includes your goals for retirement, but that's just one piece of that plan. And then the retirement is a long-term financial goal within your financial plan. It's a comprehensive approach that you're encompassing within your bigger financial plan. There's effective ways to live comfortably depending on what you want and what makes you happy and your goals. So your financial planning now is going to impact your retirement plan and how you want to live and how you're going to do things. So they overlap, but I just stress to people get confused because it overlaps a lot. They're like, I only need to do retirement planning. I'm like, no, you need to do financial planning, and financial planning includes retirement planning. So it's just about educating people. They're both really, really important, especially in today's economy and instability, and inflation has been through the roof the last 5 to 10 years, and I don't see the next 10, 15 years it getting any better. No matter what the politicians say to us, there's less and less things. Our U.S. infrastructure is not creating things. We're dependent on outside industries and markets to continue supporting us. And so if people can get more gardens and get more in the country and have land and not be so dependent on the grocery store for food, at least some of their food, like at our house, we live out in the country and we raise our own chickens, we have deer, we have a garden, we do dehydrated food. The only thing we go to the grocery store really for is produce and just like staple things here and there if the kids want some chips or desserts and we go out for dinner. Like our food expense budget every month is probably 80% cheaper than anybody else because guess what? Your produce and your meats and your fresh stuff is the most expensive. So during the summer, you stockpile, you have a garden, it's the healthiest you can get it, you plan, and then you maximize that throughout the winter season. So there's different ways to plan and think. It doesn't have to just be about, oh, I have to work for money. You worked really hard for that money. What are ways you can get creative to save? Like I talk to a lot of midwives because they're tired, they're exhausted. They go to McDonald's and Starbucks all the time. And I was like, if you took a hour on Sunday and just did some meal prep for the week and had containers to grab for lunch and got into a different habit, you would save yourself hundreds of dollars you've worked so hard for. Get yourself a nice Keurig at the office, and instead of buying Starbucks, you have something. I'm not telling you to cut corners and not have your nice coffees and your nice things, but I think too many times we're exhausted and tired and go on autopilot, and we spend so much money on unnecessary things that we could get creative and just do a different way. So I really, really want to stress to everybody, it takes baby steps. Like I'm a big dreamer and sometimes I overwhelm people with all my big ideas, but start baby steps in your life. Think about things that you're doing right now that I'm drowning in debt, I'm overwhelmed, I'm working all the time. Like what can you do that's simple? Can you increase income streams? Can you decrease expenses that are going out? Look at some of those auto pays that are going out on your credit cards. Just spend some time evaluating where is your money going, how are you getting it, and how can you save it?